see people running to their seats, and I want to say, places, everyone. Good morning. My name is Amy Collins. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a commissioned lay minister and today's worship associate here at the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Cleveland. We acknowledge that we are gathering on the original lands of the Erie and of the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabeg peoples, also known as the Three Fires Council. We recognize the need to learn more about these complex and sometimes painful histories, to care for the land we inhabit, and to show respect to the diverse people and cultures who preceded us, as well as those who gather here now. I bid you welcome whether you're here with us in person or joining us virtually, live, or at a later date. We are a pluralist and covenantal community. As a pluralist faith, we're happy to have you join us if you celebrate the earth, the goddess, follow the teachings of Jesus, the Buddha, or you find inspiration and comfort from the reliability of science and humanist teachings. All of these sources of wisdom, along with direct experience, are part of our living tradition and elements of our collective identity. As a covenantal community, we coexist with that range of beliefs because we agree to respect and care for one another and make room for one another. Our covenant is something we often read aloud as our chalice lighting because it's aspirational and intentional and worthy of reminding ourselves of each week. It transcends race, gender identity, sexual orientation, financial means, age, and all of the other elements of who we are that some might use to divide us. If you're just discovering us and want to learn more or hear from us, fill out one of the guest cards in the pew rack and put it in the offering plate later in the service. And if you're with us online, you can visit our website, uucleveland.org. Please take a moment now to silence any of your electronic devices or put them in worship mode. Take a moment to acknowledge all of the distractions that may be on your mind as you settle in, and the efforts that you expended to get you and yours out the door this morning, getting dressed, presumably fed, and transported here. Breathe in and out with the people around you and allow yourself to be open and present to what we have in store for you. Welcome. And if you now join me in our chalice lighting, words on the yellow card in the pew rack. Our covenant. We cultivate trust with one another by celebrating differences, honoring boundaries, and offering compassion and care. We listen to each other deeply with curiosity and wonder. We speak for ourselves without need to defend ourselves or persuade each other. We create safe and brave space for healthy conflict, creativity, and fun. We reconcile through forgiving and making amends when we hurt one another.
Good morning. I'm the Reverend Randy Partain. My pronouns are they, them, and I am delighted to be with you in worship today, whether you're here in person or joining us online. I have noticed, and maybe you have, that there seems to be this consensus reality outside these walls that says we need to be protective and stoic. We need to have individual resilience. We're told things like we're not supposed to cry in public, even if we're at a movie that's really sad. There's this consensus reality about how we need to be. And I want to just offer that maybe there is an alternate reality we can participate in and foster in this space, which promotes connection rather than protectiveness, a vulnerability for honest human emotion to be present, and for our interdependence to be honored above our sense of needing to present in a way that is acceptable. So with that sense of connection and interdependence, may we enter into worship today. We are going to sing together All My Memories of Love, which is hymn number 336 in the gray hymnal. And before we do that, I invite you to take a moment and greet the people around you. If you see a face you don't recognize, please make a special effort to let that person know that they are welcome today. There's something about singing in seven that leaves me a little bit breathless. And maybe that's how we feel sometimes when we think about the things that we carry with us into this space. Maybe there are things that leave us a little caught. Maybe there are joyful things. Maybe there are sorrowful things, but we want to acknowledge them. And if you're joining us online, I invite you to put any joys or concerns that you want to share with folks in the comments. If you are here in person, we have a book where we can share our joys and concerns if we want people to know about them. So we have a stone for a peaceful and easy journey for Rita O. and son Baraki for their loved one who made their transition. And also Peggy Lagani says it comes in threes. Prayers and healing energy for son Mike, who had emergency surgery this week. Friend Morgan, who is recovering from surgery. And brother-in-law Joe, who is awaiting hospice. Healing energy and prayers for Mike, Morgan, and Joe. We all bring things with us into this space, and if you would like, I invite you forward to place a stone in the water to acknowledge anything that you are carrying with you. And if you're not coming forward to place a stone in the water, I invite you to take this time to send love and care to those who are coming forward, or just as a quiet meditation. We place a stone for those joys or concerns shared online today, and a stone for those things that don't yet quite have a way to find expression. We hope that in the sharing of our burdens with one another, that they become lightened, and in the sharing of our joys, that they become magnified. So I hope you'll take an opportunity to talk about what these stones represent to you, if not today, then in the days ahead. Amen.
Good morning. My name is Jenny Papp. I'm the Director of Lifespan Faith Development here in this congregation, and I want to welcome all of you, big and little, here today. It's good to see you here. My pronouns are she and they. So this stocking was made by me for one of my children with help from my mother, probably 20-some years ago. And every year, I unpack the stockings and her ornaments that we now have. There's so many, we can't fit them all on our tree. And we share stories. I share stories of my family and of my mother when we're doing this. And the stories are often the same story, but somehow we still do that. And maybe one ornament gets the tail one year and one gets it another, but they never really get old. And it's really my hope that some piece of them, even if they're not particularly accurate, and also that they're intertwined with the occasion of the tellings, gets passed down through the generations and brings her presence and mine into the times when we are not able to be there any longer. In our circles of beings, humans and fur and feathers, those circle of beings that are precious to us, most of us have maybe some traditions, some jokes, maybe stories of dubious origin, maybe stories that have various versions depending on who is doing the telling. But we all come from different circumstances, and yet I expect we have something like that. Your particular circle might contain more or less blood relatives than the person who's sitting next to you. The stories that you share might be generationally ancient. Perhaps they're a mere few decades old, or even just a few years old. Your special traditions, or the holiday that causes these traditions, the event, might be at a different time of the year than mine is. It might have a different premise than the one that your coworker has, and yet we can still all relate to that human connection, I think. That connection that we want to gather and be present for one another. Sometimes our gathered company doesn't include the whole cast of characters that may have been there or that might be our part of these precious stories. Some of them might have passed away. Some of them might have drifted away. And some might have needed to walk away. You might be one of those people who needed to walk away from that particular circle that you love, but yet you benefit from the distance that you also share now with that circle. And that absence can be really very present when we gather with others, and bringing them into that present moment by sharing our connections, the memories of our connections. It's a blessing. It's a blessing to the people that are gathered there, to you and those that are gathered there. Well, we have a community that gathers here. It has stories, jokes, tall tales, probably some of those stories of dubious origin. And they've been created here over many generations. When we decorate this evergreen tree, which we are going to do today after brunch, we're going to be creating an experience and a community that will never be replicated. It might cause some of us to remember similar tree trimmings that included different folks. We may tell, I hope you do, share those stories with the people who are gathered here today. The sharing that happens will bring those absent folk into the story that we're creating now. We might bring their presence in and then also hope that when we're no longer here, the stories of our presence will continue to be told. And that we'll be part of that ongoing story here at UUCC. So you were invited to bring an object, perhaps a holiday ornament or some other artifact that that causes you to notice the presence of another's absence. If you've done that, I invite you to raise your hand if anybody has done that. Okay. And what I want you to do is to hold up your object and share what it is and the name or the relationship of that person whose absence you're noticed. So when I see this, it's my mother, Deliva Troy, who's absent for me now and for our family, and we love to bring her into our presence. You have something? Would you like to hold it up? Oh. We're going to see if that's on.
I'm wearing...
Nope. Tell me what to do. Got it. Thank you.
So I'm wearing a brooch that was my mother's, and when she died, I received it, and it reminds me of our love of beauty and what she taught me about that.
Thank you. Did anyone else bring anything that they'd like to share? There, one here.
Yeah, what I have here is a toy soldier that my dad and I made back in the day when children were allowed to play with lead, melting in a pot in the kitchen, because that's where lead belonged back in the 70s and 80s. And we would pour this molten lead into a mold with a bunch of C-clamps, and out came a whole bunch of these toy soldiers that I still keep today, 50 years later.
Thank you.
I'm not going to stand because you can't see it. My casserole downstairs for the potluck is my aunt's recipe that I'm the only one I think that still makes it, and it's my favorite, and I thought of her this entire morning when I was making it.
Thank you for coming over.
This is a Christmas ornament that was handmade by a woman in Texas. Her name was Lois Blaisdell. And so this would have been a good 30 years ago that I got this. I actually have 2 of them left. Cats have done a number on some of them. But Lois would go around. She was a small woman who had a heavy Eastern European accent. And she would make these ornaments, and she would go around to the various churches in the area, UU churches, and talk about the partner church that they had in somewhere in Pennsylvania, similar to what this congregation had. So she was elderly at that time, and then I'd run across her at General Assembly and stuff like that. So this is an ornament that reminds me of somebody who cared about one thing and worked and focused on it and made it happen.
Thank you for sharing, Mary. Nice to see you.
This is a Weeble Wobble it represents my aunt, which when I was a little kid, even though I still am, got it. Well, she introduced me to like my favorite TV show ever, and it's this.
Thank you for sharing.
SpongeBob.
Thank you so much. Would you help me, Craig?
Every year, my grandmother would my dad's mom would take great care in giving us ornaments every year. She passed away 3 years ago from multiple myeloma, but I still have this ornament on my tree. I was 19 months old, and I'm wearing quite a big furry fur hat, and on the back it says my name, which is Kelly Margaret, 19 months.
Thank you.
So I don't have this with me. I didn't think to get it, and it's still packed away with Christmas ornaments. But I have an ornament that I put on the tree every year. When I was in my 20s and had just met my husband, we sat around and made Christmas ornaments out of felt and pipe cleaners and glitter and sequins. And he made an ornament with felt and pipe cleaners that was a Star of David, because I was Jewish and he was not. And every year I put it on top of the tree. But along the back of it, I put another felt ornament that I made here probably 30 years ago, and it's a flaming chalice, so they go together.
Thank you.
I'm wearing my mother's favorite Christmas scarf, and she was a longtime member of this church, Viola Blount, and she's been gone 5 years, but last spring, her great-granddaughter was born, and they named her Alex Viola Blount.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you.
Mine is a little different. This was made by my granddaughter, Isabella, when she was 8 or 9 years old, and she's very talented, as you can see. She's now 11, and she's very much alive. But I'm sure many of you can relate to your grandchildren who are absent from you, particularly around the holidays. So fortunately, we will be seeing them pretty soon.
Thank you.
Wasn't sure if I was going to do this. This is it's actually a class ring.
Hold that a little closer to your mouth.
It's a class ring that my dad gave me. He died of multiple myeloma as well. He was only 49. I was really young, trying to figure it all out, still am. And I guess it's almost too complicated to talk about, but I think the one thing is that there was a point where he asked me, what are some things that I remember that are good things? And it was just in a moment where I didn't come up with a very good answer. So this ring kind of tries to, maybe he knows that I have some good things. And so.
Thank you. everybody who brought something, and if you can, I invite you to hold that up again. The rest of you, I'd like you to just, I'm sure you have something. Imagine that in your eyes. We welcome the precious presence of your being in our midst today. And thanks for sharing with us. After worship today, everyone is invited to come to brunch and share. Take time to ask your friends a little bit more about the stories that they started to share today, and share the stories that you may have come up with of those beings in your precious circles, and bring them into our loving presence. Blessed be. Thank you.
Picture yourself at your recent Thanksgiving celebration. Hopefully you were lucky enough to share some good food with friends or family. Then imagine if you had to use your last dollars of the month for bus fare or a warm sweater at Goodwill and had nothing left over for a turkey or even mashed potatoes. But you remembered it's Sunday and there's a Lorraine Avenue storefront a little west of the West Side Market where you could get a warm casserole, some healthy vegetables, and maybe some fruit or cookies for dessert. A place where you could take a hot shower and get a clean set of underwear. A place where there would be other people who share your struggles, and a place where enthusiastic helpers leave feeling at least as good for the time and energy they share as you do with a full belly. That's Urban Hope, where volunteers from UUCC and other Unitarian Universalist congregations take turns providing meals and clothing once a month. The grant that has supplied some of the funding is taking a new direction, so your generous gifts will help keep these folks well fed and clothed during the winter months. So please place your offering, cash or check made payable to UUCC in the collection plate as it's passed, or you can use our Cash App using $ UUCC 44122. That's in your order of service as well. And use the memo line to indicate today's date and our plate recipient, Urban Hope. Please give generously within your means.
וכשאני לעצמי מעני, והם לא עכשיו, מתי אם לא עכשיו, מתי.
You don't have to be brave. You don't even have to be okay. You don't have to hold your chin up and force wayward tears back inward. You don't have to walk about acting as though you don't feel like a broken stained glass window, the solvent of loss having made your mortar evaporate. You can melt, you can shower, you can shatter here. We will catch all your pieces in our hands. We will hold you as you put them back together, perhaps forming an image of a new life, a new self. Our love, our listening, our tears, our holding will form new mortar for all those spaces. Oh, we have known that solvent too.
We have welcomed a lot of visitors into our midst. We don't have to move aside on the pews to make room for them. We've just invited them into this space by evoking their memory, holding an object, and capturing a lifetime of influence on our lives. The holidays are a time when a lot of us experience a sense of absence. We might call it grief. We might call it something else, but it's worth naming. Simon Van Buy said that sometimes the emptiness left by a loved one's absence is more powerful than their presence ever was. We think about how well we maintain our relationships with the dead, perhaps, our connection with ancestors. Not every culture excels at remaining connected with ancestors. But certainly I think about the people that I might want to celebrate in absentia during the holidays. And the first person that comes to mind, or the one that keeps coming to mind amidst that, is my grandfather, whom I called Papa. Which is funny because my grandmother, his wife, I called abuela, which is Spanish for grandmother, and papa is Spanish for potato. But that's not why I called him that. He was a really important presence in my life, in my growing up. He was just the epitome of serenity. He was a Baptist preacher, but the communities of people that he was ministering to were primarily migrant workers in most of his career, and so he was not a hellfire and brimstone kind of person. He had a very gentle manner about him. And when he died, I learned things about his life that made me love him a little less for a hot second, because it seemed like he had abdicated every major life decision to other people. He had let other people decide what he should do at a lot of really important points. And I lost a bit of respect for him. And I realized that there was some repair work. We talked last month about repair. I need to do some repair work with this person who was no longer able to sit in front of me for me to ask, why did you do this? What was this about? So the work was really all on me. But I did that work. And so now my relationship with my grandfather is better. And now I have a love for him that I can celebrate in ways in my life. His picture is kind of over my shoulder. If you're ever on a Zoom and you want to look at the back shelf in my office, you'll see my grandfather, a pretty dated picture of him. And I feel that way a lot, that he's kind of just at my shoulder. But I had to make amends with him, and I had to repair things with him in a time when there was a disconnection in order for me to have the closeness that I feel for him now. And I have closeness for other relatives in other ways. There are dishes that I make, like somebody said. There are some meals that I cook that remind me of people that are gone, whom I love. But sometimes at the holidays, the absences we feel are not just about the departed. It's not just about people. Sometimes absences at holidays or any time can be about a lot of other griefs. We just experienced Thanksgiving. Some of you have mentioned the fantastic Thanksgiving experiences that you have had, whether with family or with chosen family. And I so appreciate you sharing all of those experiences with me. That was not my experience of Thanksgiving. My experience of Thanksgiving was disappointing. I had a kind of emptiness. There was an absence of something. And it wasn't about the people who were absent. It was about the behavior of the people who were present. It was what was absent was a sense of deep connection. Because everybody there kind of had this agreement that we were going to be protecting the space from one another. That we were not going to talk about things that could lead us into dangerous, treacherous territory. That we were going to keep everything safe. And in order to do that, what that meant was there was this low-lying anxiety, and everyone held this protectiveness about themselves, which to me meant there was an absence of something that I need from my holidays, that I need from my gatherings. And I said, I think it was the very next day, I turned to Joy and I said, you know, we have hosted a lot of events where I can, without any arrogance, say that everyone in the room felt valued and cared for. And she said, yeah, that's true. And I said, well, let's do that. Let's not have experiences where we're not sure that everyone in the room is going to, at least that's the attempt, that everyone is going to feel valued and cared for. So recognizing what was absent from the experience allowed me to name something that I want to commit myself to, so that I can call people on the phone and be connected and say Happy Thanksgiving, and also not necessarily spend 48 hours in a space where there's not really nourishment happening. And that'll be okay. There's not a word that quite works in English for this kind of absence. But there is in Portuguese, it turns out. And the word is saudade, if you're in Portugal. If you're in Brazil, it's saudade, because the same language gets pronounced differently. But saudade, A.F.G. Bell describes it as the famous saudade of the Portuguese is a vague and constant desire for something that does not and probably cannot exist, for something other than the present, a turning towards the past or towards the future, not an active discontent or a poignant sadness, but an indolent, dreaming wistfulness. Saudade is really important in Portuguese culture, it turns out. It's this deep emotional state, and it's almost a sense of incompleteness. It's not really longing or yearning or nostalgia. It's this harsh presence of absence, a sense of incompleteness. Nicole Baptista, who is Portuguese, says, you feel saudades, because you can pluralize that. You feel saudades for something you know will most likely never happen again, or for a relationship that was never meant to be, for a lost loved one, for a place you hold close to your heart, for people you haven't seen in ages. Saudade is the love that remains. I feel saudades for many things, for my childhood, for so many friends I haven't seen due to the pandemic, for the cities I've lived in, for the words I've left unsaid in the past, for broken relationships, for my dead grandfather. So what do we do with this presence of absence? And how do our spiritual values help us know what to do with them? Well, the first thing that I will say is we have to allow ourselves to feel what we feel and to go deeper, to recognize the reason for the feelings. So much of the time, we feel something that might be unpleasant or a little bit scary, and we decide, nope, I don't want to feel that. I am going to get so busy that I am distracted from that feeling and I don't have to experience it. Or we ignore it and we say, I'm going to pretend that I don't feel this absence or this unpleasant thing. And when we do that, we lose the gift of learning what it holds for us. We have to go deeper to recognize the gift of those feelings, the gift of those relationships, and to find the path of connection. Because all of those griefs, those longings, those saudades, they connect us to something. And that connection is powerful. That connection is a guiding compass for our lives. They can connect us with the gifts that those relationships offer to us and how we want to carry that meaning forward. And we've also got these other values that we've named. We've named justice and equity and transformation and generosity and pluralism and interdependence surrounding this commitment to liberating love. And those values don't do much for us if they can't guide our lives. So I think about, what do those values mean in this presence of absence that I might feel? And I think about generosity, that value of generosity that says, I'm going to allow myself time to feel what I need to feel, and I'm going to allow other people the time and the space to feel whatever they're feeling in this. Because our sense of pluralism means that everyone is not going to feel the same way about everything. There might have been some people at the Thanksgiving celebration that I attended that felt so nourished and fulfilled by all of that. And here I am talking bad about it. But they might have gotten exactly what they needed, and that's okay. Our saudade, our sense of longing, doesn't need legitimizing by anybody else. Our experience might be unique, and that's okay. And our value of interdependence says that at the same time as having these unique experiences, we honor one another when we validate one another's grief and we stay present with one another's feelings. That connection is the key to everything. And our value of transformation, allowing painful or uncomfortable absences to be okay, is the only way to transform them and to allow them to transform us so that we can say, I'm not just going to be angry at my grandfather forever. I'm going to work this out, and I'm going to figure out a way to love this person again. Or I'm not going to just go through experiences that are unsatisfying and unnourishing and not know why. I'm going to figure out what really matters in my relationships, and I'm going to honor that and nourish that. Our saudades may open the way to new traditions and rituals that bring deeper meaning to our holiday celebrations, and deeper commitments to how we want to show up in the world and in our relationships. The absence that we may be present with this holiday season might also be about bigger things. It might not be about individual people. The absences we feel this holiday season might be about things that seem too big to get our arms around. And allowing ourselves to feel what we feel and trusting our life-affirming values to guide us along a path of connection helps us respond to those absences meaningfully rather than avoiding them out of fear or just staying so busy doing things that we pretend that they don't exist. Our saudades, the absences we feel, offer us a clarity about what we want for the world and our relationships and how we need to show up in order to honor our deepest feelings. So if there is a call to action in this sermon, there's always supposed to be a call to action. You're supposed to walk away with something you can do, right? That would be to allow time to feel what you need to feel, whatever it might be. Not just during the holidays, but especially during the holidays. and to seek opportunities to connect and be present with one another, to honor all of those feelings without needing for them all to be the same. We're going to have one opportunity to do that after worship today at brunch together that I hope you'll stick around for, and as we decorate this space. But I hope you seek out other opportunities as well, now and in the weeks and months ahead. We are going to sing together again right now, though, and lift our voices. I invite you to rise in body or spirit. We're going to sing, I Sought the Wood in Summer. Is it 328? Yep. Number 328 in the gray hymnal. Let's rise in body or spirit. As I mentioned, after worship today, we have a meal downstairs. Lots of you have brought the food, so I hope that there is plenty. I didn't breeze through to check, but I hope that you'll have meaningful conversations and stick around to decorate that tree and this room and be joyous and glad together this afternoon. There will be another opportunity to be joyous and glad together next week when we will have our music service led by Mike Carney and our choir. There will be lots and lots of fantastic music next Sunday. And then on the 21st, Saturday evening, the 21st, we'll have a solstice celebration that will be outside, and maybe we're going to have a soup and bread meal after that. Details are getting worked out this very day, and so watch the newsletter for more specific details about our solstice celebration. And then on Christmas Eve, coming up very, very soon, on Tuesday, December 24th, we'll start with some pre-service music from some of our amazing, talented young people here at 5:30. Our service will begin proper at 6, and then we'll have a time for fellowship and treats afterward. So I hope you'll join us for that celebration as well. And then the building is going to be closed for a week from December 25th through New Year's, except for Sunday. We'll be here on that Sunday, the 29th, but the building will be closed during the rest of that holiday week. May we be present with the absences that we feel this holiday season, And may we allow them to connect us to the people around us and to our own needs and hopes, so that all of our saudades may be vessels of connection and wholeness. May it be so. Amen.
And if you'll join me in our chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish the flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
cow. You're doing good work. Whatever you're doing, keep it up.
600 miles